Hi and welcome to another production tip from Mixmag TV. I'm Paul Nolan, and in this week's tutorial we're going to be looking at Duke Dumont and Army's hit record Need You 100%. Now if you're quite careful about how you listen to this record, you'll hear that the main synth riff actually bears a striking resemblance to another tutorial we initially posted online a few months ago, that of Sasha's remix of Hot Chip Flute. So in addition to that tutorial, which you can still look at on the YouTube channel for Mixmag TV, we'll actually today be looking at the bass line which underpins the track in the chorus sections. So let's have a listen to that bass line, jump straight into Logic Pro 9 and see how we can recreate it.
Give me 100, need you 100%.
Okay, so as you can see, I am already in Logic Pro 9 here, and I have 5 channels ready to go. The bottom 3 channels, called clap, snare and kick, are obviously drum sounds that I have chosen that sound fairly similar to the Duke Dumont and Armé track. The top 2 channels are, in number 1, the Sasha's Stab channel, which contains the Silent 1 preset that we built from our first tutorial on Sasha's Hot Chip Flute remix and how to get the synth stab from that. So if you haven't seen how to make this stab already, I would highly recommend that you go over to the first tutorial that we posted on Mixmag TV to see how that was made. Also on the second track down, called Dumont Bass, we can actually see we have a MIDI file that I've created with the notes from the Duke Dumont bass line, which form part of the track and we're going to be using as the basis to recreate this sound. So we're going to start actually in the Sasha Stab channel, and I'm just going to open up Silent 1, and if we play the sound here in solo, you'll be able to hear the sound. Now, when we compare that to the sound from the stab of the Duke Dumont track, you can hear there's a slight tonal change, and what that is down to is the tuning of the oscillators. If you remember from the first tutorial, again, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. You remember that we actually spent a lot of time on the tuning of the oscillators to make sure we got the right kind of tone and the right kind of sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it here, and it's very, very simple to do. We're going to take oscillator A1 here and we're going to push it up so it's actually going to play the root note of what we play through the MIDI file here. And what I'm then going to do is go over to part B, take both of these oscillators, B1 and B2, and I'm going to drop them by 1 oscillator each, meaning B1 is going to be on -2 and B2 will be on -1. So if we listen to that now, you can hear it's got a bit more of an uplifting sound, which is very similar to the Armé and Duke Dumont track. But obviously a lot of the time in the track, it spends its time underneath a pretty heavy low-pass filter. So we're going to set that up as well. I'm just going to drop that down here on the filter control section to about 9 o'clock, and let's have another listen to it. And if we play that with a bit of a kick and the drums underneath it as well, I'm just going to select these 3. As you can see, we're pretty close already. So we just now need to put the bass riff into play. So we're going to go to track number 2. I'm going to solo the Duke Dumont bass channel here. And if I play the notes here, you'll be able to see and hear that it's obviously a very plain initialized sound. But you can hear the progression. So if we actually look at the MIDI file here, if I double click, you can see the notes are C, dropping down to a G, up to an A sharp, and then back down to an F, just to give you that movement. So the actual sound that Duke Dumont and Armé have used is a very famous kind of sound, And it originated itself in Detroit techno, and it was actually one of the initiators of Detroit techno, Kevin Saunderson, who actually created this style of bass line, and it's commonly known as a Reese bass line. Now, more contemporary styles of music have associated this sound with drum and bass, where drum and bass producers have taken this sound and they've morphed it and they've changed it in a number of ways in order to make it really suitable for that growling, snarling type of drum and bass sound. However, in its more classic kind of use in techno and house records, it has a much more kind of lower, smoother kind of sound, and that's what we're going to be recreating now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with oscillator A1, and we're going to turn the octaves down here by 2. We're going to keep it on sawtooth, and what we're going to do is we're going to push the voices all the way up to 8, and then we're going to turn the detune control up to about 11 o'clock. Now, what that detune control is going to do is it's going to take each of these voices and it's going to slightly offset the pitch of each voice, which means you're going to get a very thick, kind of phasey kind of sound from each voice and from the sound overall. So we're actually then going to go over to part B, and then what we're going to do is drop the octaves down here on B1 down by 2. Again, we'll do the detune at about 11 o'clock. And then what we're going to do is keep it on sawtooth. This time, we're only going to give it 5 voices. Okay. And then on B2, we're going to actually have the sine wave here. And we're going to turn that all the way up to 8. And then what we're going to do is drop it again by another 2 octaves here. And then what we'll do is we'll actually just play that now. Okay, so you can hear that real phasiness and that real kind of colour coming in. Now, we're not just going to leave it like that because clearly that's nothing like the track. However, as we know from the Sasha tutorials and from synthesis theory in general, we actually now need to take this larger sound and then we're going to actually we're going to filter it and we're going to change the tone quite a bit. So we're going to use the filters for that. And basically what we're going to do is go back to part A, and we're going to use filter A, and we're going to change the filter type here to a low pass filter. And then we're going to change the filter decibel rate here, or the cutoff rate, to 12 dB. So that'll give you a smoother kind of style. Okay. And then what we're going to do is go over to part B next. Again, select low pass filter, put that on 12 dB. And then the filter control, we're basically going to set to about 9 PM here. Okay, so let's have a little listen to that now. So it's you've got that bassy kind of raspiness. But then what we're also going to need to do is just change some of the ADSR envelopes here so we can actually get a slightly more smooth sound. So we're going to raise the attack ever so slightly and the release on both parts. So we now get a nice transition. We don't get that click that was happening initially. Okay, so you've seen me make some small adjustments there just to explain them. I've actually taken the retrig controls off of oscillator A1 and also oscillator B1. Now what that does is that stops the waveform, the sawtooth wave in B1's case, and again sawtooth in A1's case. Every time there's a new note, you would have heard the sound almost kind of begin again. That stops that from happening, and it gives you again that really nice smoother kind of sound. So what we're also going to do as well is just explain the changes in the filters. Each oscillator, or each part, is going through its own filter, as you can see, A and B. And they've got slightly different controls on this section. So that on part A, I've just used to, here about sort of 2 o'clock, I've just used that to basically bring out more of that raspy, phasey top end. And in part B, I've got it filtering off some of the lower end aspects. Again, some of this sawtooth wave in B1 and then some of the sine wave in B2. So again, that's resulted in a bit more of a smoother sound. And again, I've just raised the release on both parts here on the ADSR envelope. So just give it a bit more of a fade out and to connect the notes. Because as you can see here, there is just a very slight gap between the second and third notes here. So if we play that with the original stab and with the kick drum, okay, now you've seen how you can recreate that bass line from Need You 100% by Duke, Dumont and Arme. Let's see if you can get that into your own productions in your own and unique way using similar settings. As always, another production tip will be along again very, very soon. I'm Paul Nolan. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.